Hello and welcome back to LTC Heroes Live. My name is Peter Murphy Lewis. I am your host. I'm excited because today I'm at the Wisconsin Healthcare Association convention. It's my first time in Green Bay, and it's my first time meeting Rick Abrams. He's the president CEO of the association. Rick, welcome to the program.
Peter, it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for you being here. And, it's great to be in Titletown. It's great to be with the members. The conference started this morning. We're off to a great start. Looking forward to a very, very productive and hopefully enjoyable next 2 days.
Rick, I agree with everything you said, that it started fast. We already did a first workshop, a pre-conference workshop. People went specifically because of Lori, because of her energy. What are some of the topics that you know was important for your team to put together this week that you're focused on, whether it be around care, whether it be around interoperability, whether it was around survey readiness? What do you hear from your members that they want to talk about this week?
You've hit all the high points, but, I think the focus of our two pre-conference sessions this morning, certainly it was clinical, it was on customer service. Look, there's just so much of detail that our facilities need to be concerned about. But, at the end of the day, and this is what I picked up the time that I was in there, is that really it's all about relationships. It's all about using your senses, and it's all about your humanity, and so that's what I take from Lori and Tina's session. The other session that we ran was on reimbursement, very, very technical, but our presenters, from our reimbursement consultants were excellent, and they really did, if you will, a 101 on Medicaid reimbursement for our nursing facilities. Very, very important. So I'm excited, and for the attendees through the next 2 days, they're going to see that continual theme, whether it's clinical, whether it's reimbursement, but most importantly, workforce. Okay, hopefully they're going to be able to take with them an awful lot of tools on how they can retain and attract great employees.
Rick, I want to ask you specifically about long-term care. You've been in your role as president and CEO about 2.5 years, right? You came right in the middle of COVID. Of those topics and concepts that you just mentioned, which were the ones that were hardest for you to learn when you were onboarding and becoming a leader in this organization and understanding long-term care? And which are the ones you're like, I may never understand this. I have an amazing team. I'm going to let them handle that.
Well, Peter, great question, and probably everything. But, it's interesting. This is my second stint in long-term care. I started my healthcare career as a state ombudsman in New Jersey and working coincidentally for the New Jersey affiliate. But, I took 15 years off to represent our physicians, both in New York and in Wisconsin and nationally with the American Medical Association, so I was a little rusty. So, when I came in, probably the most difficult thing that I really had to learn was the Medicaid reimbursement system, not just for our nursing facilities, but also for our assisted living centers that participate in Wisconsin's home and community-based waiver, which we call family care. But 2.5 years into it, I'm feeling pretty comfortable. But back to your point, as a good CEO, I know when to allow my staff experts to take care of things. So whether it's Kate Dixon with reimbursement, before it was Pat Boyer with clinical issues, now our governmental affairs vice president and I are tag teaming the clinical issues. But you had mentioned Lori Koppel, you had mentioned Tina Belangi. We've just got so many great clinical experts. So we're also working with them and using their expertise to solve problems, to answer member questions.
Talk to me a little bit about the board. What's the board that you've put together? What are you focused on in the next 12 months? And if you're still trying to create a board, what's the next board member that you need to fill in the gaps of knowledge or energy or focus and skill set?
I'd answer that question in two ways. Our priority moving forward, is really threefold, I always talk about three buckets, if you will. Financial, regulatory reform, and workforce. From the financial standpoint, no question it's the state budget. In Wisconsin, we have a 2-year budget. The new budget will take effect on July 1, and we are right in the middle of those discussions with legislative leaders as well as the governor's office. From the standpoint of regulatory reform, for our assisted living members, we're working with state government on the creation of a fee schedule, rate bands, if you will. Very, very important. If we do this right, it is going to be a generational change for our assisted living centers that participate in family care. From the standpoint of our nursing facilities, while I respect the folks from our survey agency, Division of Quality Assurance, the current system as it's being implemented is overly punitive, and really does not respect or empathize, if you will, not only what our folks bring to their task of caring for the most vulnerable among us day in and day out, but really what they go through. So we're really trying to, if you will, refine the survey process, hopefully in concert with the Division of Quality Assurance, but we're also going to be speaking to the governor's office as well as our legislature, because it's really, really a critical issue. Of course, the third issue that really is a culmination, if you will, of finance and regulatory reform is workforce. We need the resources. We need to create the culture and the environment so that not only do we want to bring people want to work in long-term care, and it's a wonderful profession, but want to stay in long-term care. So we've got to be successful to make sure that the revenue is there, okay, as well as a regulatory environment in which people want to work in.
I'm guessing you speak to your peers in other state organizations. Where is Wisconsin leadership, legislation in relation to staffing and workforce? Is it pretty much par for the course? Do you feel like you have the support of the politicians to conquer this big challenge? Maybe not next year, but in the next 5 years?
As I talk to my colleagues across the nation, literally, as well as the American Healthcare Association, we're all faced with the same challenges. What I will say with our policymakers, both Governor Evers and his administration, as well as the state Senate and Assembly, both of which have Republican majorities. Given the division of politics, they disagree on a lot of things, but one of the few issues that they agree on is the need to support long-term care. So what we've seen in the current budget and what we expect to see in the new budget is historic funding increases for our assisted living centers and our nursing facilities. As I said before, critically important, because it's going to be that revenue that is going to enable us to pay a living wage to our employees, okay, and attract new employees. So I can't say enough about the tremendous support that the policymakers, again, executive branch, legislative branch, have given us, not just from a financial standpoint, but at the height of the pandemic. Again, as you said, when I came on board, it could have been very, very easy for them to use long-term care as a scapegoat. They didn't do that, unlike other states.
I was going to say,
they had our backs.
Yeah.
They understood. Again, I think on the great work that preceded me, because we educated policymakers, they understood the daunting task that our people had. And and look, we love the financial support, but I got to tell you, the moral support that our policymakers gave was every bit as important.
You do seem like the exception to the rule in that education part. I tend to ask long-term care executives, if your peers could take you out to dinner and kind of quiz you on something that you've done well, what would it be? And then they usually tell me, and that's what I talk about. It seems like that might be something, I'm from Kansas, and last week I was in Michigan. It seems like that's something their president and their CEO of their association be like, Rick, teach us the Wisconsin secret.
Well, we, as I say, I've only been here for 2.5 years, but, it's all about, Peter, it's all about relationships. It's all about trust. It's all about candor. Okay, and the example that I'd use is that, look, our members have a very, very difficult job to do. So often, things work out well, but sometimes things go wrong. And when problems are brought to our attention, okay, we investigate, and if we conclude that the issue is a real one, okay, we solve the problem. We solve the problem, no excuses, and we solve the problem. And it's that kind of trust, it's that kind of candor that I think makes all the difference in the world. And again, Wisconsin is unique, okay? As I speak to my colleagues across the nation, they have those honest relationships with regulators and legislators. But there are issues. There are issues on which we'll agree to disagree. But once you build that relationship, okay, my experience in public affairs is that you end up agreeing on more. And those differences that you thought were so wide before get a little bit narrow. And again, it's all based on trust and confidence in the people and quite frankly, liking the people you work with.
Rick, I want to transition into why long-term care, frontline caregivers, owners should be coming to this convention, why they should join your association. I've only been here for half a day. The workshop that I was in the morning, I would say that if I had never been here and I was recruiting Peter saying, hey, I would say, hey, there was a room of 3 hours where people were doing self-care. Long-term caregivers are hard on themselves. They're critical. They expect the most, and that can be tiring. That extra stress that we put on ourselves doesn't make us the most optimal subjects to take out care if we're always that hard. So self-care would be one thing. What other things would you say to someone to invite them to join this association? This is what you're going to get from your peers.
Peter, again, another great question. One of the things that was missing during the pandemic was what I'll describe as the human touch, okay? The ability to interact with your colleagues, and be able to trade, suggestions, recommendations, scenarios. That's probably the number one reason why non-members, members need to attend meetings like our spring conference, like our fall convention, even our charity golf tournament for our Mackenzie Scholarship, because you get to interact with your peers or even your competitors, and it's tremendously positive, not only from what you learn, but as you said, for your psyche, and things, people share your burden, and things maybe aren't as bad or as bad as you think they are. So that'd be number one reason. And of course, the education we believe is top notch, and the support that we receive from our business partners. We're all in this together. The support that we receive from our business partners, all the products and services that they can provide is really instrumental, for them. So for all of those reasons, but most importantly, the camaraderie, got to attend.
My last question as we wrap up, Rick, is around the innovation in your event, specifically on, and where does that come from? Where do the ideas come from on your team, from your board, from your members? On Friday, I was asked to participate in a panel in conjunction with the healthcare and business program that you all have a relationship with at the local school, and we're bringing on 3 Gen Z young leaders to talk about how we can recruit Gen Z, how we can retain Gen Z, how we can onboard Gen Z. Where do you all come up with these unique ideas at your convention?
Well, first thing, internally, we talk about the kinds of things, when we take the pulse of our members, it's not what we think our members need, it's what our members tell us that they need. So, it's the intel, if you will, that we all have by doing our job. But, most importantly, what we do is that in order to determine the scheduling, for meetings like this, we ask our members, whether it be our board, whether it be committee and council members that we have. But again, we'll ask our business partners. We appreciate so much from what you all provide, and you've got expertise that we know our members want and need. So we gather, if you will, the intelligence from all of you. So it's between staff, but more importantly, our members and our business partner members. And that is what creates the agenda, the curriculum for meetings like this. And quite frankly, the recipe, if you will, has proven very, very successful. But, you continue to refine, you continue to improve. So thank you.
Rick, on behalf of LTC Heroes and the crew behind me, thank you for inviting us to come here. It's a pleasure, and I look forward to seeing you on the expo and interviewing some of the members of your association.